Hello and welcome to stage 4 of the Digital Swiss 5 from Oberlangenegg to Langnau. There are 36 kilometres of racing today and a little bit less climbing than we've seen in some of the previous stages, potentially one for the classics riders today. I'm your host, Kira McVitie, and I'm here with my other half, Jacob Hennessy, pro cyclist for Canyon DHB. Jake has actually partaken in every stage of this Digital Swiss 5 fan race edition so far. How have you found it?
It's been hard. It's surprisingly hard. It was yesterday was 1,500 meters climbing up to the top of that massive climb in Switzerland, and it was really tough. You can really feel the gradient, and it is actually quite realistic to how you would expect a climb like that to feel.
Exactly right. So earlier today, there was in fact a pro race. What's great about the Digital Swiss 5 is that every day the pros compete on the same course that the fan race will do. So you have the opportunity to ride like the pros. Earlier today, we saw Mr. Kung, I've forgotten his first name, Stefan Kung, taking the win there, followed in a very close battle with Michael Matthews, and rounding out the podium is GB track star Ethan Hayter. It was a nail-biting race. If any of you tuned in, I'm sure you saw it. I thought Michael Matthews might hold on, but Stefan Kung sealed the victory in the end. They both looked completely ruined after that.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those races where Kung paced his effort sort of perfectly the whole way and knew the sort of power he wanted to ride. Matthews, a lot more of an attacking style racer, set out with the intention, obviously, to blow the race apart on the early climbs and just then try and settle back into his pace. But Kung's just raw power brought him back at the end. So it was an incredible one to watch, actually.
He was incredibly strong. And to be honest, in the first half of the race, Stefan Kung didn't even look like he was really trying on the screen there. They did the whole stage, 36 kilometres, in a finishing time of 46 minutes. So it's going to be a quick one today, a lot quicker than yesterday's stage. How are you feeling about that? Shorter stage, a little bit flatter?
Yeah, I'm looking forward more to the flatness of the stage versus the shortness. Yesterday, like an hour, I think it was around about an hour 20 or something like that, but it was a good 40 minutes of climbing to the finish. And it was a summit finish with only 300, 400 meters of flat just before the line. Today, a lot longer. I think we're looking at about 16 kilometers from the top of the last climb, or it's around 10K, 16K of consistent downhill into the finish. It's just 2 climbs to take on today, both with reasonable gradients, nothing too dramatic, nothing really over 10%, but sort of consistent around the 6 to 7% mark. So it's going to be a tough one, but I'm in now. So
well, get ready to go because we have 10 minutes until we get underway here at the Digital Swiss 5 from Oberlangenegg to Langnau. It's going to be a flat stage today, 36 kilometres. Sprinters are probably not going to be in the running today, but a more classics rider, time trialist, could take the victory today.
Where's the entry?
One of the interesting things about today's stage, as Jake mentioned earlier, is the feature of 2 climbs. But just after any climb, there are 2 descents. And within Rouvy, the maximum speed that you can achieve on the platform is 72 kilometers per hour. So essentially, if you can get yourself through your power up to that speed, if you then put out exponential more power on top of that, you're not going to go any faster. 72 is the maximum you can do. So actually, you're going to get a small amount of respite coming down the first climb and coming down the second climb. So it isn't a case of a straight flat out time trial like we've seen in some of the previous stages where it has been a gargantuan FTP flat out effort for an hour. Today's ride potentially will be featuring a few more tactics being played. Do you yourself have any tactics that maybe incorporate that descent? Do you think you'll take
No, like you say, 72 kilometres being the ceiling for speed on this is something new to me, but I'm willing to give it a try and see about maybe pacing my efforts slightly harder for the climb. But again, it's still a long way to go, and that long descent maybe playing more into my hands, being sort of a bigger rider. Hopefully I'll be able to pull back whatever I can on the descent of the second one. But again, it's just about sort of limiting losses, and it is more of a time trial effort still. The respite is only marginal, so it's realistically going to be a 40-minute effort of maximum. It'd be interesting to see what the tactics are for some people. I think a lot of people are going to be going hard from the start.
I think so. It's always a tough one with these virtual races to call it, particularly in the fan race. We don't often know ahead of time who the key protagonist will be in this race. But it's always interesting to see how it unfolds. And often the riders that you see at the front in the first couple of kilometres are not necessarily there at the end. We've got an interesting lineup of interviews during this stream as well. We have class act rider Zdeněk Štybar, who rides for De Koning Quickstep, has featured in many classics, won Strade Bianche in 2015, E3 Think Bank Classic, and in 2019 won the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad in 2019.
Amazing race that he won there, and he rode away from Greg Van Avermaet, who's been featuring quite highly in these Rouvy races. So super powerful rider, Zdeněk Štybar, and definitely a big idol of mine. So
he took on the pro race earlier today, so it'd be really interesting to get his insight on how he found that and just generally how he's coping with quarantine at the moment. We've also got a really good interview lined up with sports director from Team Bahrain McLaren. Team Bahrain McLaren, of course, featured as well in the race earlier today. I'm not actually sure who their
Jan Tratnik. I think Jan Tratnik was the highest placed rider from Bahrain McLaren. I didn't see anybody really before him. I think he was around sort of the 15th, 13th position, like inside the top 20. But again, you're looking at the riders of Stefan Kung, Victor Campenaerts, Greg Van Avermaet, all these massive powerhouse units. Victor Campenaerts, obviously our record holder. You'd think this platform would be perfect for him, just whack out a big hour power, but like it is still a bike race, and it has got the gradients to take into account. So maybe that's proof, if proof were needed, that tactics are slightly more necessary than just raw power for the hour.
It'll also be interesting to hear how the pro teams are adapting to a lot of the races being moved to the end of the season. Jake and I were talking just before we came on the stream about how, having a classic like Paris-Roubaix or Flanders at the end of August, when it's still going to be warm weather, will that completely change the dynamic of the race? And how will the riders adapt to the unforeseen circumstances that are being thrown at them?
I think in previous years, we sort of got used to that big dust clouds of Paris-Roubaix and Strade Bianche, and not having a wet race in so many years, we've kind of got used to the heat of it. But I think, like I say, it would definitely make it a different race with the being, in France, it's going to be 30 degrees around that sort of time, you'd expect. So whether or not that makes any sort of difference to how they're training for it, but also with all the races being packed into such a tight schedule, what can they do to prepare for it? Can they actually prepare for that race, or are they just going to have to make themselves more of an all-rounder to take on a Grand Tour mountain pass and then finish the week with a 260k classic?
We just don't know at this moment, but it'd be really interesting to hear from the people who you would like to think they are going to be the first to know of any changes to the calendar. And it'd be really interesting to hear from, I'm going to try to pronounce, Goraz Stangelj.
Good effort.
I'm actually going to find out how to pronounce his name, which is always part of the fun of commentating. He was actually a pro between 1997 and 2011. So I wonder if he'd have enjoyed doing some kind of Rouvy racing. He was quite a time trialist back in his day. Let's have a look then. 4 minutes left until the start of the penultimate race of the Digital Swiss 5 We are heading up 36 kilometers to the beautiful town of Evanshull, but we've got the notorious Schallenberg to overcome, which is one of 2 climbs that's going to feature on today's route. 444 meters of altitude, so slightly flatter than some of the stages we've seen up to this point. It's going to be one for the time trialists, the more classic style riders.
Also, just those punchy riders. Also, some punchy riders might be able to actually hold themselves back on the climb and ride to what would be their sort of 80% on that sort of punchy effort, and then TT for 20 minutes. Because a lot of the people on here will still do 20-minute tests. So it's a case of sort of get yourself over that little climb, recover as best you can, and then get back into your effort and just sort of break it down into small segments. But it'll be interesting to see. Right, 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes to go. So I'm getting a question through on Facebook about how you actually use Rouvy and can get involved. So Rouvy is a augmented reality cycling app. You get to ride on real roads, and at the moment we're riding some of the roads that feature in the Tour of Switzerland. You head over to rouvy.com for more information on that, but essentially you download the app and you can trial it for 30 days completely free. They've got routes from all over the world. Jake was riding in China the other day. So it's amazing to be able to experience all these different roads just from the comfort of your own home. They also have plenty of races on there, just like the Digital Swiss 5. There is one more race left in the Digital Swiss 5 if you would like to get involved. If you do, head to race.rouvy.com and we could be commentating on your suffering and you could be riding along just like the pros do earlier in the day. Coming into the last 2 minutes until the start, then everyone will have completed their warm-up, hopefully. Very important with this online racing to have a thorough warm-up, because the moment the flag is dropped, the gun goes off. It's going to be flat out for 36 kilometers as they make their way up the first climb. Tactics might be deployed today, as we mentioned earlier. You only have the ability to go up to 72 kilometers an hour. So there's the potential for a small amount of respite on the descents, which could make it really interesting, as it's not going to be a flat out effort for the whole 36K.
There you go, that's it. Fan is on.
The fan's on.
I'm fully prepared now.
Jake's getting ready.
Head down, fan on.
We're coming into 1 minute until we're underway. Be interesting to see if we've got any riders who have taken part in the previous day's racing. And it'd be interesting to find out if you're the only one who's been mad enough to do all of the Digital Swiss 5 races.
To know if there is a prize for the overall GC, because
I think you would have won it.
It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see how many nutters. I've seen there are a few people, there's a couple of people from the UK that I've seen that have done multiple days, which is cool to see. Getting involved.
Okay, 30 seconds to go now before the mayhem begins. And we commence the 36 kilometers from Oberlangenegg to Langnau. The Digital Swiss 5 has a pro race earlier in the day, and then you are now tuned in to the fan race, which takes on the same course as the pros, with amateurs from all over the world and a few pros. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're underway now. Oberlangenegg to Langnau. Some incredible numbers being hit out at the moment. I saw someone hitting 10 watts per kilo there. Absolute insanity. They've obviously not been watching the earlier days racing, where often the riders pulling ahead at the start weren't able to keep the pace. So just a few names then tossing through the top 10. We have J. Lloyd, L. Yuxa, W. Matute, who's featured in quite a few of the previous races. J. Aran Garcia, C. Beneke, P. Barrett, J. Fury, B. Del Fortezza, W. Sebza, and B. Groen, who's also featured in previous days racing. There's only 50 meters or so between the top 10 at the moment. Jacob, who is riding next to me in the studio, is in 16th place, riding at 6 watts per kilo. Very impressive stuff here, putting out phenomenal power at the start of this race. Everyone seems to have settled down slightly now, riding at a more sensible 5. Well, it's still going to hurt, but it's 5 to 6 watts per kilo. I saw someone hitting 10 watts per kilo at the start there. That was a huge amount of power being put through the pedals. Potentially too much for the beginning of this race. I'm just trying to see who's establishing themselves at the front at present. We're on board with W. Sebza, who's riding at 4 to 4.5 watts per kilo on this flat section here. You might notice if you're following along that, for example, some riders are putting out massive watts per kilo and others maybe less, but basically the watts per kilo is only really relevant when you start going uphill, when you start hitting that incline. So on the flatter sections, it's more about the raw power that the riders are sustaining than their watts per kilo. On board with W. Sebza, riding at 250, 270 watts there, making a really solid effort, and everyone here is putting the hammer down. W. Mathieu in the lead at the minute, followed closely by J. Lloyd, L. Euster, and Jacob Hennessy moved up into 4th position. Really impressive stuff from Jake after having ridden the previous 3 stages. Split number 1 comes at 12 kilometers in, so we have quite a while until we get there for the amateur race, the fan race. Earlier today, we saw Michael Matthews hit out early on, putting a bit of a gap into everyone, followed closely by Andre Greipel, who was featuring near the front. But through split 1, the leaders were starting to establish themselves. Matthews crossing split 1 in 1st place, followed closely behind by Hayter and Sebastian Dillier. But Michael Google, Stefan Kung, and Sylvain, what did I say? Stefan, sorry, it's Stefan Kung and Sylvain Dillier. Okay.
2 Swiss hitters.
2 Swiss hitters. So, Sebastian, no, I've confused myself now. Stefan Kung was in 5th position going through split 1. So, he actually managed to seal the victory in the pro race, but he wasn't far off the mark going through split 1. So, I would say that 12k in when we hit that split will be a real good indication of how well these riders will get on in the overall distance. Back to the screen. We are on board with Jacob Hennessy, who has moved himself into 3rd position. I think it's a good day for Jacob as it's a more flat rolling circuit, but this is going to be hurting. He's thrashing the pedals. He means business today. W. Mathieu in 2nd is riding at 6.6 watts per kilo as we hit the foothills of this climb. It's going to start kicking up here to around 2 or 3%, but they will be feeling that in the legs as they drive up this climb. Earlier in the day, we saw Michael Matthews hit the climb first, forging ahead his gap at that point. But if you saw earlier, he was unable to hold on to the lead and was picked at the line by Stefan Kung, who rode a perfectly paced and perfectly timed effort to the line, which shows that, you know, going out too hard in these kind of indoor virtual races potentially might bite you when it comes to the end. Jacob out the saddle then, putting the hammer down as we hit the bottom of the climb. He's only 100 meters away from the leader at the minute. It'll be a case of pacing himself as best as he can up this first climb, because remember, this stage features 2 climbs, this being the first of those 2. Andre Greipel was right up there at this point, but as he's quite a large fella, a strong rider, he started to feel the pinch, started to flag on this first climb, and he dropped away. But we saw from the footage that it was amazing that his bike was even staying on the turbo, the amount of power he was putting down. Really impressive stuff. You can probably hear Jake giving his all next to me, riding at 6 watts per kilo at the moment. 480 watts I just saw there on the screen. That is huge amounts of power. He's clearly got watts to spare as we hit 9% on this first climb of stage 4. We've seen W. Matute, who's currently in 2nd place, previously on stage of the Digital Swiss 5. And it looks as though he's going really strong today in the dark green jersey there, as Jacob rides past him into 2nd place. Will W. Matute respond, or is he waiting until later on and pacing his effort? This first climb is a brutal battle as we head up to split 1 at 12 kilometers. It's around 8 or 9 kilometers to the top of this climb. So they have 2 or 3 kilometers left until we reach the top. A lot of people doing this race will know that it's actually 72 kilometers an hour is the maximum speed on this platform. So potentially the riders will be giving a maximal effort up the climb to then potentially recover somewhat on the descent. It'll be interesting to see how that 72 kilometer speed cap ceiling makes the difference to the dynamics of this race. So Jacob, just next to me, has Jay Lloyd in his sights, only 34 meters in front of him at the moment and closing. The gap's holding at the moment as Jay Lloyd responds with 6 watts per kilo. T. Hanlon moves into 4th place. I've just seen there ahead of D. Riggett. Both riding at consistently over 5.5 watts per kilo. What's great about this Digital Swiss 5 and the fan race is that you, the fans, have the opportunity to take part in the same course, the same route as the pros earlier in the day. We saw an amazing battle between Michael Matthews and Stefan Kung earlier today, in which Stefan Kung took the victory. So that gap is holding still. Jay Lloyd and Jacob Hennessy, the battle for first at the moment. The gap's holding at around 35 meters. We've got a couple of kilometers left on this climb though. Have they paced their efforts well, or is this a little bit too much too soon? It's amazing how many riders we've got on the start line today. Over 400 riders, I believe, taking part in this fan race. It's great to see people from all over the world getting involved, particularly at the moment. There seems to be more and more people taking up cycling, and therefore more and more people getting involved with the indoor cycling as well. I think it's really important at the moment to have something to give us all a little bit of extra motivation. I think Rouvy fits that place really well. Having online races definitely helps keep the motivation to keep pushing and to keep the fitness up. M. Smith seems to be closing in on B. Growin, the battle for 6th at the moment. But looking down across the whole of the top 10, there is only 300 meters. It's going to be a really close race. It's quite surprising, seeing as we are going up this climb, that they are so close. And Jacob Hennessy takes the lead ahead of Jay Lloyd. He is absolutely destroying the competition at the moment and riding away from Jay Lloyd in 2nd position. W. Michute there in 3rd, not much movement there. It's going to be all or nothing to the top of this climb for Jacob, around a kilometre or 2 to go until we reach the summit. So the Digital Swiss 5, race 4, Oberlangenegg to Langnau. We are 7 kilometres in, around 29 kilometres left to go, and 12 minutes of racing complete. This route will feature in the 2021 Tour of Switzerland. So it's great to see some of these amazing climbs and scenery and get to experience the roads from the comfort of our own home. Out the saddle then, as he pushes on, 6 watts per kilo for Jacob Hennessy at the moment, and riding away from Jay Lloyd. The tables have turned and there's now 33 meters between 1st and 2nd. It's going to be an all-out effort to the top as we come into the last kilometre of climbing. This is the first of 2 climbs featuring on today's stage. It's a steep one though, 8% at the moment. As you can see beside me, Jacob is giving it everything, giving it the beans up this climb. He took the win on stage 3 of the Digital Swiss 5 and he's hoping to do it again in today's stage. Keep it going, Jake. "14 minutes of racing done, and we're coming close to the top of the summit. The riders will be wanting to get over that as best as they can because they'll be able to benefit from the descent and hopefully get some breath back before we take on the final climb of the stage. It won't be too long either until we're joined by Zdeněk Štybar, infamous classics rider from the Czech Republic, who rides for the Koenig Quickstep, 2nd at Paris-Roubaix, winner of Eneco Tour, winner of Strade Bianche, and numerous classics, and of course, 3-time world cyclocross champion. I think a lot of people forget that. He will be joining us very soon, in around 5 or 6 minutes on the stream. But first, we can see the summit of the climb as Jake pushes on over the top of the climb. He'll be wanting that descent now. And everyone else is left to do the work. 118 meters between 2nd place and 1st at the moment. Jacob crests the climb and we can see the descent starting to unfold, the silhouettes of the mountains in the distance. Here we go. The next point of interest on this course for Jacob is that first time split, which comes at 12 kilometers. So Jay Lloyd is leaving a lot of work to do here then, as he's 400 meters down at present and losing time. W. Matute is 40 meters behind him. But I think that potentially this gap is going out because of the descent, and obviously the meters distance is relative to the gradient that they are on in real terms. So it's hard to know how much distance really is between them until they start the next climb.
Oh, that was hard. That was
So
15-minute flat out power test.
that was really impressive power there. We saw 480 watts at points.
Yeah, it's my type of climb.
Yeah.
A couple of K long. And just get out the big watts.
The next one isn't quite as brutal.
Nope. A little bit steeper, quite a lot shorter.
I could see that you were...
I'm taking it into account now, the 72k an hour. I just made sure I got over it, got up to speed as quickly as I could, and just chilling at 72k an hour now. Catch my breath and then go again.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just looking at Jay Lloyd in second place, I don't think he's clocked the 72 kilometer an hour cap. And it seems that some of the riders know that there is this ceiling on Rouvy and some of the riders don't. Jacob has done many of these races now, this being his fourth race. So he definitely knows what's going on at this point.
Time check of the leader from the last race. Number 1.
Yes,
what did
so
Matthews do?
I didn't actually get the time check on split 1. I'll try and get that on the radio now. We have 200 meters until we hit split 1.
Be interesting. Because that was as hard as I could go.
Rich, can you get me the time check for that, please? Jacob hits split 1 in a time of 18 minutes and 22 seconds. Let's see the difference then between himself and Jay Lloyd, who's coming up towards the line now. As he passes by the camera and takes that split number 1, he is 21 seconds down at the moment. Jean-Pierre Lloyd from Office Guru Racing in second place. W. Mathieu also making a sterling effort as he comes towards split number 1. Willie Matute then takes split number 1, 46 minutes down on Jake, followed closely by Matt Smith. It's going to be an interesting battle for third there. Only 4 seconds between Willie Matute and Matt Smith. And not far behind are Thomas Hanlon, Dominic Weiss, and Bernard Groen. It is only a minute between the top 7 at present, which is really, really impressive. Be interesting to see how everything stacks up after split number 2 at the top of the next climb. Split number 2 comes at 16.64 kilometers in, about 10 miles of racing done. This is the point that we saw Stefan Kung move up into 4th place from 5th. And we saw Matthews, Hayter, and Michael Google were the top 3 at that point. But the gaps were starting to come down. And we saw the leaders of the pro race not all hold on. Matthews did the sterling job, but we saw Michael Google drop away as it seems the man of the hour, Stefan Kung, was poised 72 to take the victory.
That was 72 section.
Takes on another descent.
Oh, and now it's up again.
68.8 kilometers an hour, speeding down this descent. We are 14 kilometers of racing done, almost 15 kilometers.
Let's check 2.
Check
16.
2 comes at 16.6. So it's only 2 or 3 kilometers of climbing. We're about to hit the next climb. Get ready. Here we go. It starts getting steeper, 6%. It's going to push up to around 8-9%. As we see the distance gaps start to come back due to the nature of the incline of the road. Jay Lloyd around 200 meters down on Jacob at the moment, followed by W. Matute. Be interesting to see if M. Smith can make any ground and take that 3rd spot over this climb. It's going to be a full glass effort to the top then, as we come towards the halfway point on this race. Jacob is thrashing the pedals away. He's pushing on as we come up this mountain. 8% at the moment. Deceptive, these roads, when you see them on the screen, but 8% is really, really tough for the leader. M. Smith, who we're on board with at the moment, he's going to start hitting those steeper gradients very, very soon. And his smart trainer or trainer will be adding the resistance as this gradient goes up. There's an interesting point made earlier in the pro live stream. I was watching Alex Dowsett chatting away, and he made the valid point that you actually have 2 power meters available for a lot of the pro riders. They have one that's on their bikes and they have one that's on their smart trainers. And he was saying that potentially it would be better to read the power straight from your cranks, because some might be lost through your drive chain as you're putting the power down. So he said things like having wax chains and things to improve your drive chain efficiency, if you're only using a smart trainer, might actually make you more efficient, read more power through your power meter, and therefore be better and go faster on these virtual races. Jacob is hitting 9.5% on this climb, and it's an all out of the saddle effort, all or nothing to the top. It's another 600 meters or so until we hit that split number 2. It's starting to bite, but there's not long left of this climb, and then it's practically downhill to the finish. So we'll watch Jacob go through split number 2, and then hopefully not long after that we will have the interview with Zdeněk Štybar. 400 or so meters of climbing left until this split. Can we go through split 2? Okay, so we're just going to get through split 2, and then we will go straight to Zdeněk Štybar. It's all out to the top of this split, around 300 or so meters left now until we hit that split. pro riders took this split in a similar time to Jacob, or around 20 minutes or so. He's doing a really, really strong ride here up this climb, 200 meters to go. And we can see that split number 2 banner. Jake turns down his gears as he spins up to 450 watts. This bit is 10% and it's really starting to bite this climb, but there's not long left now as he forges ahead through split 2. He's got 160 meters to the good on Jay Lloyd, and W. Matute still there in 3rd position. I'm going to see if I can get Zdeněk Štybar on the line very shortly. So 26 minutes, 47 seconds the time there at 16.9 kilometers of racing. So now we're through that split, let's head straight to an ad break. And once we're back, we will have that interview with Zdeněk Štybar. So we're joined now with Zdeněk Štybar, infamous classics rider. How are you doing?
I'm right now the post-virtual Tour de Suisse race. So actually right now I'm fine. As I see your colleague, I was 1 hour ago probably at the same suffer phase. So, but now it's better.
Good, good. So how do you find this digital racing?
You know, well, it's of course, yeah, you can compare it at all with just normal racing, but it's also fun. It's yeah, you know, like now the post race is fun already. During the race is not fun.
Yes.
But yeah, it's okay. I mean, it don't has to be every weekend, but yeah, it's somehow it's fun.
Okay, good. How are you finding refocusing for the classics now that they've all been kind of moved or cancelled?
Yeah, you know, to deal with it, it's not really easy because you know, I was working really hard for this period, or okay, the period passed already.
Yes.
Because it was like 2 weeks ago should be Paris-Roubaix. So it's really hard, but somehow in the head I just tried to say, okay, I'm like with my mind I'm back in the winter. So I just hope that in a few months we can have again those races like Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, maybe even Milan-San Remo. I think that will be really cool for cycling. It will be strange if we will get like Paris-Roubaix in October or even November. But I mean, it will be, yeah, just let's hope that we will get those races.
Yeah, I hope so. Do you think having some of those classics races potentially at the end of summer will make a massive difference to the way that they're raced, or not?
I honestly, I don't really know, because of course it will be new situation for everybody. It depends what kind of races we can do before those classics. But I think it will still feel the same. Maybe it will be just more hot, because to do races like Flanders and Roubaix in 30 or even 35 degrees, I think it will be really tough. Because sometimes even when it's like 20 degrees, it's really hot for those races. Also because it's on the end of the winter, so we are not used to the higher temperature. But maybe now, because it will be on the end of summer or September, probably we will get used to it. But still, if it will be, let's say, 35 degrees, it will get even more tough than normal.
Yes. So how are you finding apps like Rouvy and indoor training helping you through this time at the moment?
To be very honest, I'm right now in Belgium, and I am lucky, and we all are lucky who are staying right now in Belgium, that we can still train outside. We can do all our trainings outside with one friend or a teammate, just with one single person. And the weather was also really great here the past 4 weeks. So I don't have to go for one single time on the home trainer. I was two
Amazing.
times. I was 2 times on my home trainer, and it was the virtual Tour of Flanders, and today for the virtual Tour de Suisse. And that's actually in the past 4 weeks only 2 times that I was on the home trainer. And maybe in the past months, it's, I don't know, maybe I did 2 times more. I basically never go on a home trainer. Only like for warming up before time trial. And I'm also lucky that I can go to the forest with my cyclocross bike or with a mountain bike. So even when it's bad weather, I still try to go outside.
Well, perhaps you're at a disadvantage then for these indoor races if you don't get any practice.
Yeah, honestly, it's like with Tour of Flanders, it was really difficult because it was my first virtual race. Somehow I also could not start directly with the first guys, so I had some delay. So I was all the time in the group, so it was not really funny. And today, I was, it was my second virtual race. So not that I had some experience, but just I could somehow pace myself better than with Tour of Flanders. So it's of course it's without experience, but I think it's the same for most of the riders.
How do you think these sorts of races, you said it's your first couple that you've ever done, how does it compare to, the likes of the classics that you're so good at?
You can't compare it at all because it's with a virtual race, it's more like time trial, so that you can really space yourself, and obviously you can ride on the flat and uphill and even downhill all the time, this kind of the same pace. With the classics, it's also all about positioning. To be on some moments, you must be in the front, like in the top 10 position, but on some climbs you can be top 100. That the positioning is not that important. With this virtual race, you just can't compare it because you just have to push yourself as hard as you can. And also, like today, the race for me was like 50 minutes. And all the big races are plus. So you can't really compare.
Is it better to compare it to maybe kind of like a cyclocross length effort being around that sort of hour mark?
Well, also not.
No.
Because like in the cyclocross, we are like really sprinting behind the corners, or you got some steep climbs where you really have to sprint again. But then you can also recover. You have like really short moments to recover. And yeah, here with the virtual race, you just go. You just go all the time the same pace. I think you can ask right now your mate over there.
Yes, he's suffering away. 400 watts. I don't think is comfortable for anyone.
Oh, 400 watts. It's not really comfortable. I can tell you.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining us and giving us some great insights there. Zdeněk Štybar, thank you very much.
You are welcome. Have fun there.
Bye.
Bye.
Amazing. Well, that was great to hear from Zdeněk Štybar. But back to our makeshift commentary box, and we have Jacob Hennessy leading the way and suffering beside me up this second climb of over the second climb of the day. And we have 25 kilometers of racing complete. That means almost into the last 10 kilometers of racing. It's going to be a tight finale between third and fourth. Only a couple of 100 meters there, and fourth and fifth, only 10 meters, in fact, between T. Hanlon in fourth and M. Smith in fifth. That's going to be a really close battle to the line. So I'm just going to see if we can possibly get our next interviewee lined up. We're going to be speaking to sports director of Team Bahrain McLaren to pick his brains about all things indoor racing, all things Rouvy, and see how he's finding the Digital Swiss 5 for his riders. That will be coming in around 5 minutes. But until then, Jacob is about to take split 4, coming in about 300 meters. We hope we can get our next guest soon, because we're coming into the last 10 kilometers and it's pretty much flat all the way. So there might not be much time to get an interview in.
Oh my God.
Okay?
This hurts so much.
Come on, Jake.
Oh, it hurts so good.
He's just taken split 4 in 38 minutes. So the pros took this split in 35 minutes. So Jacob is riding incredibly strongly to only be 3 minutes down on 3 or 4 minutes behind Matthew's time as they went through split 4 in the pro race. So I believe we have the competition winner of the, basically every day Rouvy has been giving away some Rouvy goodies to whoever could guess the time of the pro race. Just going to get through who the winner is through my earpiece. So the winner today is Julian Lafosse, who guessed the closest time to the pro race, which was completed in 46 minutes. I wonder what he guessed. Back to the action. Jacob is still churning out well over 400 watts. It's going to be all or nothing then to the line as we come into the last 7 kilometers of racing. It's going to be a case of clinging on to this pace for Jacob. It's not going to be comfortable, but he's got a kilometre to the good on his second place rival. So just before we come up to the final 5 kilometers, we've got a quick ad break. But don't worry, we'll be back with the action very, very shortly after this advert. Okay. Welcome back. We are here. 41 minutes of racing done on the Digital Swiss 5 from Oberlangenegg to Langnau. It's going to be a hard push for Jacob in the studio next to me as we come towards that final 5-6 kilometers left of today's stage. It's been a brutal battle featuring 2 climbs that have, I'm trying to think, the first climb was around 5 kilometers and the second around 3. Definite tests of strength as we're on board with D-Vice putting out 4.5 watts per kilo and closing in on B Growing. It's going to be a tight battle between these two as they give it everything to come out the victorious. It's a superb effort from B Growing. He seems to be pulling away slightly from D-Vice, but it's a case of whether he can hold on into these final 5 kilometers. So Jake has just hit split 5 in a time of 43 minutes. The pros, Michael Matthews went through here in 39 minutes and 44 seconds. And at this point, it was only 10 seconds between Michael Matthews and Stefan Kung. And we saw that Stefan Kung eventually did take the victory there. But this is the point where it is really tooth and nail between those two in the pro race earlier in the day.
5K to go. Come on.
Last 5K then for Jacob. He's hanging on for dear life to this pace. As we see Jay Lloyd riding at 4.7 watts per kilo, take split 5. He's over a minute and 19 down on Jacob. Doesn't look like he'll be able to get back on terms before this end of this race. But you never know, anything can happen. Jacob is around a kilometer ahead and just going through split number 6 at 44 minutes of racing done. It's incredible that Jake is still able to hold on to this phenomenal power, tickling well over 400 watts, 300 watts, 400 watts, and then back up to 500 watts as he gets out the saddle. He's really giving it everything as we come towards the close of this penultimate stage of the Digital Swiss 5. It's going to be a case of trying to hold on to his effort as we come into the final 3 kilometers of the race. It was around here in the pro race earlier today that Stefan Kung had Michael Matthews in his sights and was catching him, and at this point starting to overtake Michael Matthews. As Stefan Kung overtook Michael Matthews then made another surge, testing Stefan Kung to see if he had the legs to continue, which he did in the end, but only by a close margin. Both of them completely spent as they crossed the finish line, as it should be in any race. We're about to go into split 7 in 100 meters for Jacob. This is the last push to the finish line, and it's slightly downhill. Out the saddle again as we come towards split 8 for Jacob. 34.6 kilometers done once he hits this split 8. 300 meters to go, and we're still going slightly downhill. The splits are going to come thick and fast to the finish line. There is a split banner at the last 5 kilometers of the day. Split 8 in a time of 47 minutes and 9 seconds. Let's see if Jay Lloyd or W. Matute in second and third have anything left to close this gap down somewhat. The closest battle, though, is still between T. Hanlon and M. Smith. They have only 10, 15 meters between them.
Come on. That's it. Kind of.
Split 9 is not long away as we come up to 300 meters to go till split 9, 35.7 kilometers done. And this will be the Flamme Rouge. This is the one that all the riders will be waiting for, as it signifies the last effort, of which is a gargantuan effort for Jake as he hits 500 watts and back down to 450 as he makes his effort to the finish line. This is going to be an incredibly impressive ride from Jacob. The pros completed the whole distance in a time of 46 minutes and 3 seconds. And Jake will only be 3 or 4 minutes down on that once he crosses the line. Just seeing Jean-Pierre Lloyd heads through split number 8 in second position. Jean-Pierre Lloyd, the South African from Office Guru Racing, who is an under 23, so doing an incredibly strong ride there. Followed just behind him by Willie Matute from Delta. There's just over 10 seconds between them. Here we go then, last 200 meters. It's going to be everything he can do now to the finish line. He's thrashing the pedals. This is where he's putting the hammer down. 75 meters to go as Jacob crosses the finish line and takes the victory on stage 4 of the Digital Swiss 5. A seriously impressive effort there, but now nothing is left as he hunches over the bars to try and gain some breath. On board with Jay Matute as he makes his way to the finish line. He's just about to come into the last kilometre. But with W. Matute just behind him, he needs to keep pushing. He needs to hold on to this. It's going to be interesting to see if either of them have anything left. Or W. Matute in the dark green jersey there, putting the power down. He really means business, but can he catch back up to Jay Lloyd in second position on the road at the moment? They're just about to go past McDonald's, but More importantly, we are into the last 500 meters for Jay Lloyd. He's hitting 7 watts per kilo, I saw there. So he's definitely putting in a final sprint to make sure that Willie Matute does not catch up to him. He does not want to lose this second place on the road as he comes into 200 meters to go. He's still pushing on as he comes towards the finish line. This has not been an easy effort by any means, and he'll have a time of just over 50 minutes as he comes through the line now. Willie Matute not far behind him and riding strong. He's into the banners now and only 100 meters or so behind.
Whew. Oh, I'm glad that one's over. That was really
How
hard.
was that?
That was a super tough course.
Champione.
That was a super tough course. It was a lot more similar to how you would race a bike, I think, because you really have to try and get over the climb in the best position you can, and then just try and catch your breath. And it was similar to sort of how you would ride a time trial, just making sure you can make the most out of the bits when you're going to go slow and try and save enough so you've got something to add up on the climb, on the descent. But yeah, that was really hard. I tried to follow kind of a similar pacing strategy to Hayter, because I saw him in the pro race go pretty hard up the climb and then kind of relax himself on the descent, obviously knowing the way the game works. And I think luckily, because I've done the previous 3 stages, I've kind of got into the habit of how you put out power on the turbo, and also just how to play the game, because it is essentially working out how to race just like you would in any other situation. So I think I'm starting to get the hang of it now. So that was my maximum. I wanted to see the time compared to the time that the pros were doing, and I just gave it my everything. But
so you, in the end of the day, you were 3 minutes and 30 seconds down on the winner of the winning time of Kung.
Yeah, I'll take that. That's all. That's
It'll be
as good as I
interesting.
could do.
So Jacob actually used to ride with Ethan Hayter on the GB Academy.
Yeah, so
who finished in 3rd position. So
yeah, we lived
it'd be
together.
interesting to see how close you were to
your
teammate Hayter.
That was
part of the motivation.
That was what I had in my head. But I lived with Ethan for a year. We shared a house, and yeah, I know exactly how strong he is. So
let's see. We've had the top 10 come through then, and others are following in behind. Thank you for joining us, all the riders. They've done an incredible ride. Jacob, you've got one more of these to go.
Yeah, I think I've got what I can get out of myself on the stages that have mattered. I've definitely done well winning the 2 flatter stages, but the hilly ones, I'm just, I'm well off the ball. Tomorrow again, another 36 kilometers, same distance as today, but it's double the elevation. So I feel like it's going to be a super tough one. Yeah.
We're still waiting to hear from sports director from Team Bahrain McLaren. We'll hopefully get him on the line in the next couple of minutes. But until then, it's time for me to pick the winner's brains on all things Rouvy and all about that race. You said before the stream that you didn't have any tactics, but I saw you going way harder up the first climb than a paced effort. Well, so you must have had some sort of tactic there.
Yeah, but again, it's the same as what I was saying. You're going to try and make the time that you would lose. You always try and make the time on the climb. If you're going to go up a climb, you go up it 10% harder than you would on the descent. And I wasn't going easy on the descent, but now knowing that 72 km/h is the maximum speed, I knew that once I got over the climb, I just had to sort of catch my breath, and I had at least 2 minutes of sort of recovery before my next effort. And I sort of split the ride into 4 different efforts. So I had my first effort getting to and up the climb. That was my first effort. Then I've got a little bit of recovery. Then I've got a bit pushing into the bottom of the next climb. And then I've got that second climb. And then I've got my last effort, which was the whole of the descent, which was the longest and hardest part to break down in my head. But again, I like to think of it in weird ways. I like to think, you know, in 2K, I've only got 2K to go, and then it's 2K to go, or something stupid just to make myself feel a bit better. But that was hard.
Well, it is always a bit of a mental battle, these indoor races, because it is just a massive effort. You're riding at way more than your sort of hour power, or, you know, it's a time trial effort. So you're just pushing up against the limit of what you can actually do at all times. So mentally, that is very difficult. But if you can break it up into some little segments like Jake does, that makes it slightly easier.
It'd be interesting to hear what other people do. It'd be interesting if you can leave a comment. Just let us know how you break your rides up, because for me, it's definitely the easiest way to say, you know, I've only got, if I'm doing a 20-minute test, it's, you know, I've only got 5 more minutes, then I'm halfway. And just stupid things like that, just to kind of, you know, break it down mentally so it's a little bit more bearable. Because if you think to yourself, oh, I've got another 48 minutes of this, then it's a long ride. Whereas if you think, oh, I've only got 3 more minutes to the top of the climb, it's more bearable, and you can just kind of, you know, make it a little bit easier on yourself. And like you say, indoor training and riding a turbo is all just really a mental battle with yourself.
What did you think of this course compared to the one yesterday? I know you didn't get on so well yesterday. Yesterday I hunger flatted
in an hour and a half ride, which was kind of embarrassing, but just goes to show how hard you are going. And I kind of underestimated again how hard it was. I really suffered. I ended up finishing the race and going and having a gel. So just sat in the kitchen, stroke the dog and have a gel and sit down and try and recover. But yeah, it wasn't pleasant. Today was a lot more bearable because these smart trainers are, and with the way Rouvy's set up with the algorithms, it does feel a lot more like a real road. So you can kind of get over your pedal and it doesn't feel like you're doing, you know, that old school turbo session. It doesn't feel like you're really slamming against nothing and you're kind of having to flick over the top of the pedal. But I think yesterday's course, for me, with my weight and everything, it did feel like that. It really felt like 5 watts per kilo, 6 watts per kilo is doable if I can get over the pedal, but 6 watts per kilo, 5 watts per kilo for me, if I'm having to pull through the pedal at that high torque seated, it just, I really struggle with it. So.
Well, impressive stuff today. That's 2 wins out of the 4. So that's quite a good track record, really.
Yeah, I'm doing all right at this.
So tomorrow's stage, we've got a bit more climbing again. How do you think you'll fare tomorrow?
Again, not good. Not good. I'm not looking forward to tomorrow's one, but tomorrow is the last one and it's only 36k. 900 meters climbing, which is a fearsome amount of climbing in such a short distance, but you know, we've had worse. We had 1,200 meters on the first stage with 26 kilometers of racing. We had a stage that was almost pan flat with 180 something meters. Then yesterday with 1,500 definitely felt like 1,500 meters. It was almost just like a hill climb from the bottom to the top. And anyone, especially in the UK with the hill climb things that we have here, it's very similar to that sort of pain.
So I do believe we have the sports director from Team Bahrain, Merida, on the line, ready to go. We'll go to a quick ad break and then we'll hear from him after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're joined now by Goraz, who is the sports director of Team Bahrain McLaren. How are you doing?
Thank you. Fine, thanks. Anyway, this situation, at least we are racing, kind of, so we're happy. And
yes, that is good. How exactly are you recommending to your riders to kind of train at this point in time?
yeah, let's say we have a few. Let's say we have a plan when we are gonna return racing. So the best scenario, and they're not. Let's say they're not in top condition now. That's for sure, because the racing will start not very soon. So they are maintaining as much as possible their weight and their physical condition, and they will build up their condition as soon as the racing plan will be confirmed.
Yes. Yeah, it's a difficult time for all of us, especially sports fans. You know, we want to see the bike races for sure.
Yeah.
So how do you find this digital racing? You know, how do you guys kind of take it? Do you pick a specific team for each round? You know, how are you kind of doing it?
Let's say that we are kind of happy that this virtual racing is going on, because at the end, at least we are showing our building up our let's say serious racing for the next period, when let's say when this period will finish about coronavirus, and we are gonna go back on the road. But behind every team there is a lot of economic industry, so we are really happy that we can at least show the racing on the computer, on the virtual world. Still we are alive, and this is kind of bridging our racing towards the real racing later in the year. We hope that it will happen very soon.
Yes, definitely. So I've lost my question, bear with me. How do you feel your team got on earlier in the day? I know you had Jan Tratnik, I think, was your best placed rider, was he?
Yeah, today Jan was our best rider. I admired our riders because I got a lot of feedbacks from them. Let's say that in Slovenia we are lucky in this moment. We don't have this total lockdown, so riders can train outside, but this virtual racing is going on the smart trainers, so they are actually training also, and to be part of this racing. And when I say I admire them, because this is really tough effort.
Oh yeah, it
is.
is.
It's, let's say, the period they are racing, let's say it's 1 hour more or less, they are full gas, so they are putting so much of energy into this. Also psychologically they need to prepare on the racing, and as we saw so far, the time trial specialists are leading the race more or less every day, are winning the stages. Jan is also time trial specialist, that's why he's doing well. And it's different, but they are not afraid to show their condition. They are not afraid to maybe be beaten, because on the road it would be different. But still they are collaborating. Actually they're not collaborating. They're fighting every day to do their best.
Amazing. You yourself were a professional rider between 1997 and 2011. How do you think you would have got on in this sort of race?
Let's say that I've never loved the home trainers because I would prefer, when it was bad weather, I preferred to move into the better condition places than go on home trainer. But there was still during the winter was a lot of trainings going on the home trainers. So, but it was, let's say, it was once every 10 days, maybe. Let's say that was the average. So maybe during the winter, all together was maybe 10 or 15 trainings, not longer than 1 hour, 1 hour 20. I was not a fan of that, but now I find this racing very good. Very good. How to bridge everything. So I'm considering that a lot of countries, actually the most important countries in the cycling, like Spain, France, and Italy, are their only possibility is training on inside, indoor. So most of the peloton actually are riding on it, and it's helping a lot. It's helping a lot in this situation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much from your insights, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks to you to invite me.
No worries.
Bye.
Lovely. That was Go Raz Stangelj. I'm gonna try. I am so awful with the names. Please bear with me. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in to this Digital Swiss 5 Stage 4 from Oberlangenegg to Langnau. It's been an epic day today. Jacob Hennessy taking the winner chicken dinner. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock UK time. You can actually join in at race.rouvy.com. So hopefully see you then. All right now, bye.
Why are we all in? We were born this way and keep going. We stick together, discover and dare together. We share good times, sore times, and party times. We're the wild boys, the legends, the mothers of awesome, and we belong together.
Join us at welovecycling.com. Skoda, simply clever.